Welcome to another episode of the Market Makers of Iowa Real Estate podcast. In this podcast, to be honest, I created it simply because I want people to stop talking so much trash about other real estate agents and lenders. It's for lenders, it's for real estate agents. So if that is you, you're going to like these podcasts. Please subscribe and go back and listen to some of the previous episodes. We have, top people in the industry, and subscribe so you get notified when other podcasts are dropped. We are putting them out weekly, and we're going to continue to have Central Iowa and Des Moines real estate agents and lenders share their insights, their stories, their strategies of where they're moving their business, where they see other agents making mistakes, and where they see that agents can just work together better to create transactions that are easier for the agents, the clients, the lenders, everyone involved, because we've all worked with that agent that is just a pain in the you-know-what to work with. And sometimes I've realized this. I've had conversations with agents. They don't really know how they should act, right? So I came from an industry of insurance, and it is a very similar communication style as the real estate realtor to realtor industry, because I was talking to other professionals in like business professionals. So I came in kind of with a step up, I would say, on how to communicate to agents. It was very natural to me to act professionally. And not that agents don't always act professionally, but a lot of them start in the industry and they don't have any background on how to properly formulate an email to make sure you don't sound like the guy that just came from the bar that just worked till 2 a.m. Because we do have some of those real estate agents, and that's okay, but they need to know how to better equip themselves with professionalism, and what they don't know might hurt them, right? So that's why I'm putting this podcast together. I'm the host of the podcast, Darson Grantham, and today we have Tyler Osby on the podcast. And what Tyler sold me on before it was a real estate agent, he sold me on marketing, which is kind of funny. And I don't know how much I'm going to dig into this on the podcast, but Tyler was one that introduced me to what marketing could look like for a salesperson or an account manager. When I met him, I was in the insurance industry, and he gave me 4 or 5 books to read that absolutely changed my life. Like, without question, changed my life, because that was the point when I realized that marketing can be a system, sales can be a system, and then you have to create the systems inside of your business. If anyone knows Tyler and has done any transactions with him, systems is his jam. He knows an enormous amount of how to, he has developed an incredible skill set to build the systems, build the business, and is one of the lenders that I really, really enjoy working with when we do a transaction together. So let's dig into the podcast with Tyler and see what he has to say about real estate agents and lenders working together better. We'll cut out and it ends up sounds okay.
Fine.
It's not a big
deal.
Yeah. But okay. Okay, Tyler, appreciate you coming on the podcast. Like I said, kind of in the intro, the goal is just to educate folks, lenders, agents about the Des Moines market, how to work together, how not to work together. So I guess we'll just start off. Can you give us a 30-second to 2-minute, your background?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time.
Before.
Yeah. Way before real estate.
Before my real estate, not yours necessarily.
Yeah. Well, so I've been doing it for an embarrassingly long amount of time at this point. So I've been doing it for mortgages. I've been in the mortgage industry for 21 years. I started when I was 19. I didn't intend to get into the mortgage business, but I kind of found my way into it. I was recruited while selling car stereos, actually, is the story. So I sold a guy a radar detector, went out and helped him set it up, and he had a really nice car, and he was young. And I was like, what do you do anyway? And he told me he was in the mortgage business, and I said, I don't know what that is, because I didn't. And he told me, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. I think I could do that. And he's like, well, if you've thought about doing it, I'd love to have you come work for me. So I went to work for a guy who gave a 19-year-old kid a chance, thank God.
What did he see in you at that time?
I think it's so awkward to talk about myself that way. I think that, I was always really big on delivering an amazing experience, right? So it's not common to walk a radar detector out to someone's car.
Fair.
And I wasn't doing it just because I was curious what he drove. So I think he saw someone who really tried to figure out what the need was because he didn't know what he wanted. And I ended up helping him purchase the best radar detector we had after I knew what he wanted. And then I helped him set it up because it needed a proper setup. So I think he just noticed, like, you know, this kid probably is decent at the sales thing. And I had been working since I was 14. So I've always been a kind of an addict at work. So started there, changed a lot actually in terms of like where I worked for the first 4 or 5 years. I don't know if you've ever heard the expression. I've heard it before, where it's like you're in your first year for like 5 years.
Yes.
And that was pretty much the first 5 years of my mortgage industry experience. But then I started going to events like outside of central Iowa, and I met people who like really seemed to have their stuff figured out. Do we curse on this?
Curse on
right.
Okay.
They had their shit figured out. So I saw people up on stage that were closing like 20 and 30 loans a month. And in my office where I was at, and frankly, like the most successful people I knew in the mortgage business locally were killing it, doing like 4 or 5 units a month. Wow. Which, you know, you could make really great money back then doing 4 or 5 units a month. And I remember sitting in, it was Las Vegas at these events, and I'd see these people saying what they're doing, and I'm just doing the math, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like that's like professional athlete money. What am I doing with my life? So I started paying attention to how those people ran their business, because the reality is like what it takes to do 2 to 5, you know, help 2 to 5 families per month, and then help like 30 to 50 is a lot different. And I just started kind of studying it and modeling it in my business. And I was lucky enough to find the place that I still work at now 15 years later and it wasn't like just luck. I interviewed like 40 people. Like I'm not
interviewed 40.
Yeah. I was given a huge, so loan officers get a hard time for changing companies and so do real estate agents. Yeah. So I come from a worldview that like, I don't judge, like everybody's got their reasons for moving. Selfishly, when I was moving, I think 6 different places in 4 years, I was just chasing a split. And some people can relate to that in real estate, where you're just looking to get more of your money, right? Then when we went to this event, I realized like, oh shit, okay, I guess it's not about what I net. It's more about like having systems and support to actually successfully produce. So I had co-founded a company. I had no ownership. I was broke. But I had a lot of ideas with a guy named Adam Carroll. So if we're local, there's people who know Adam, you know Adam. And Adam and I had 4 Legacies Mortgage. Our intention when we started it, probably more so his intention, because it was his money, was to get like 10 of me working there. And we were fortunate to get a couple really amazing people, but to scale it to where we needed it to be for it to make any economic sense for him, we just weren't going to do it. It just was a lot harder than we thought it would be, or more so what he thought, because I just needed to sling loans. So he and I kind of agreed, like, we can't financially make it work where it made sense for me to stay there and build what I wanted, because I needed to be able to start hiring staff and that kind of thing. And he said, listen, dude, like there's no rush. We got a lease here. I've got the license. Like just keep doing loans here. Start interviewing. Like figure out what you want to do. And when you want to go, if you're the only one left standing, like I'll wind it down. That was the biggest gift someone can give you in this industry. Yeah. And I'm still buddies with AC today. Like he emceed my wedding, and he's just a good dude. But because I was given that freedom to like figure it out, and no urgency or deadline, interviewing 40 companies was actually a possibility. So anyway, after interviewing all of them, there's just more of the story, but it's not important. I found Fairway, and that's where I've been for 15 years. And when I joined Fairway, we had 700 employees, and we did about $3 billion in volume that year, which is a lot, but not anything near as big as it is today. So at our peak during COVID, we had like 10,000 employees, and we did 74 billion, I think, in loan volume. Wow. And right now we'll do like 2 to 3 billion per month, you know? So like they've grown a lot, and it's been wild to be a part of that as well. But they, you know, the thing I love about Fairway and what they allow me to do is I can kind of run my own business within a business. Yep. The name of the company is Fairway Independent Mortgage. And I mean, they believe it. They act like it. And I found, because I've coached other loan originators all over the country and stuff, it's what I've got is very unique in a company with the size and scale that they have, that they let me do things the way I want to do it. I always say, like, as long as I'm not breaking any laws or making any stupid choices, they're pretty okay with it.
Are they still that way for any new people that join or start a franchise or however they do that?
Yeah.
It's what they believe in their core.
Yep. That's just the core values. So, but it's all about just finding a place that you feel like you can build a business that you're proud of. Right. Yep. And you can do that in a number of different places. But what I think a lot of people don't realize in this business is that freedom that you get, like the day that you step into it, can be awesome, but also like the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. You know, like for me, at least, just speaking from experience, I remember I closed my first deal and I made like a ton of money. It was more money than I had made in my life in one paycheck. It was like 4 months of selling car stereos. And I kind of like just took a month off and was very comfortable. And then I just realized, like, being in like a retail environment, there were people coming in the door that needed the thing that I was selling, and I just needed to be able to figure out what they needed and help them find it. But I was never really aware of the marketing that drove people in the door. And that was one of those like things that I learned and eventually like really studied and became a student of marketing, which I know you are. And that changed outside of like just going to events and seeing how successful people structure their business. Falling in love with marketing was probably the best thing I ever did. And frankly, I really enjoy it. Like, it's a ton of fun. I consult on marketing all the time for people, in and outside of the mortgage business.
And it ties the marketing, the systems behind that goes into marketing. It's the same as the systems not same, but it's just the same mindset.
Yeah. Very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. A little bit more than 2 minutes. That's okay. Yeah. So I would love to dig into that, like how you run your, like all of that, but I don't think we're going to get into that in this podcast.
Sure, yeah.
We're going to just talk about like because of the volume that you do, you work with all kinds of agents.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And also, I mean, I've seen your posts on Facebook groups of just, you work with other lenders too, right? Which is pretty uncommon in your space from my experience.
Yeah.
And so let's dig into the agent side first. For agents that work well together, how do you see that? And like, what do agents expect? Or I guess
from a lender?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that everybody's different. And our timing of this, to timestamp it, because I think it's kind of interesting, is we're in July of 2024, and there has been an enormous shift in real estate with how buyer's agents get compensated and how they have to communicate how they're being compensated. And I've spent the last 21 years of my career having to justify my fee, if you will, right? And over the years, because of the marketing, we get a lot of inbound opportunities to refer clients to agents. So we reciprocate a lot. It sounds like a plug, kind of is, but whatever.
It's just business.
But it's just
There's
business,
nothing
right?
wrong with this.
So the thing that I've learned, though, is when I used to make that handoff to agents, I would literally say, and I know it is the same thing buyer's agents say, that's why I say it, is you'd be crazy not to have a buyer's agent because the seller's going to pay this commission anyway.
Yep.
It was the easiest referral. I mean, talk about like a simple job to make a sale, just don't screw it up. Boy, has that shifted, now I'm finding myself asking the agents we work with, hey, how do you want me to refer you? What stands out about, what you do. It's just a really interesting time where I think we're going to see a lot of the people who are great at demonstrating and knowing their value come to life. And then agents who have no idea will struggle,
Or they'll learn.
Hopefully they
better,
figure it out.
I mean, yes, the majority will struggle.
Yeah. So I think the question you had asked is how are agents successful, right?
Like just working what does a successful agent look like? What are they doing differently? What should agents take away to learn? Be like, I love ahas, right? I love modeling. So when you went to events, I love going to events. I went to one this last week and I was like, opened up my eyes to what is out there, even though I listened to all the YouTubes and all the podcasts, but it was just different. So like, like what do you see in successful agents, both on the, solo agent and the big teams?
Yeah. Well, I think the number one thing is they never stop learning. Like they're always soaking up as much content as they can from their peers. And I'll be honest, like I think a lot of people struggle with that because they aren't open themselves to share what they're doing and what's working and what's not. And I think the sooner that we can all come around to it, and for me, this took a embarrassingly long amount of time. But admitting like I didn't have it all figured out. I don't know why, but I was just really insecure that people would like figure out that I don't know what I'm doing or something. And as it turns out, like nobody does.
Right.
So we're all just trying to figure it out together. But I find that people are more likely to share their process and what they do if I'm really open and sharing about my process and what I do. And you might do it in your own office. Maybe you've got some friends that are successful in your real estate office. But what I've found to be more impactful is going outside of Des Moines,
local, yep.
And finding other people in other areas that don't see you as a competitor. They're more of like a peer. And then you can both really kind of like be honest and say, hey man, I'm getting my ass kicked when it comes to this particular thing. What have you done to fix that?
Yep.
For me, those conversations have been some of the best. And frankly, like it's easier today to do that than it ever has been, because you can find people online, that you admire the way they position themselves, and you can hopefully look them up to see if they're the real deal and actually closing any units, because there's a difference, right?
Yes.
But I think that making friends is an important way to do it. And for me, just being really honest and vulnerable, I didn't have the confidence to approach people locally to do that for a very long time. And I don't know if they would have shared or not, but just taking ownership of my part, I didn't approach anybody either. I just started writing checks to be in rooms with really successful loan officers. Frankly, at the beginning, it was money I didn't have, which I'm not endorsing that. But, if I'm going to but if I'm going to spend money that I'm investing, if you will, that was a place that felt like a smart place to put it. And that has paid huge dividends, because I've made, lifelong friends in that. And people who were coaches at one point are now just peers, because we've kind of grown together and become really good friends. That's what I would do, is just try to get out there and, like you said, model what works, but, more specifically, be really open about what's not working for you as well.
Yeah. And I would challenge anyone listening, do both. Go, outside of the state or locally. But honestly, I could name 15 agents right now, agent-wise. I don't know about lenders. I don't know the lender world as well.
We've gotten way better connected here, and you can probably hear that in my tonality of how I talk about lenders. I've not always been this way, to be clear, and there's a story there. But what shifted for me was realizing, like, okay, I need to make some friends here. Like, everybody fucking hates me because they don't know me. Like, it's easy to hate someone that you don't know. Yep. But once we all like started hanging out and talking, like, there are some amazing local lenders in Des Moines, and they're good people, and they're doing a good job, and they're all working in a different environment than I am, so there's pros and cons to that. But to your point, like I've mentioned in groups and stuff, like I know what my strengths and weaknesses are. I know if I'm talking to a client, if I don't have the right solution, I might know the right person who does. And I can't speak for everyone. I know there's a lot of people that handle it the same way I do, but if I can't help someone, I'm not going to say no if I know someone else can. I'm going to ask for their permission and the agent's permission also to make an introduction to someone who can actually help. And for me, like, I just like being the first call, that's the positioning, is like, I don't want you to have to feel like you need to know 10 different lenders to run all these scenarios. You just want somebody who can be your who.
Yep.
Going to Dan Sullivan language, right? But, I think as an agent, it's important to kind of know your specialty too and be able to refer stuff out. Residential, I think we're kind of like all in one category.
I've noticed Des Moines is like that, the metro.
Yeah.
I actually refer out Ames. I won't go to Ames.
Okay.
Like it's such a different beast. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
If you want something up there, let's talk to
It's a
somebody
very,
else.
Ames oriented town. We've cracked it a little bit. We've been fortunate to have some agents who trust us, but yeah, I mean, I used to fight tooth and nail on Ames deals just to keep buyers. So anyway.
But other markets, you have, I mean, when it takes longer than 20 minutes to drive everywhere, then yeah, I mean, you're referring out, you know, an hour and a half. If it's Atlanta, it's one side to the other, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Cool. Okay. You guys' business has grown more statewide. Like, I know you've done a push for that. Can you explain that of like, how's that agent or lender atmosphere statewide versus locally?
Yeah. Well, there's different reasons, right? Like, first of all, you know, there's a certain like natural life cycle of a relationship, right? So I've had the experience where I'll have an agent that we've worked with for like a really long time, and all of a sudden I just lose them. Like, I don't know what the hell happened to them. And it's because they became buddies. Like, they moved in next door to a loan originator, or they, you know, I don't know, they got them the right donuts, or I don't know what it is. But the bottom line is like, I know that I need to diversify just for sustainability, right? But the other thing I realized is, as a loan originator, there are a lot of amazing people in central Iowa, but there are not a lot of amazing people in other parts of the state. And the reason why is because a lot of times it's a bank loan officer.
It's a volume thing too. Yes.
They've never had to do more than what they do. So, you know, agents aren't used to getting like any kind of an update. They have to go solicit it, right? In Des Moines, it's gotten a lot better. Yeah. But in smaller towns, it ain't that way, you know? And you know, sometimes they don't have the same products that we do. So like, we have down payment assistance, and we're really good at it now. They don't do that, you know? So we're able to help them say yes to more people that they wouldn't normally be able to say yes to. And we're also able to help them with accessibility, because we're around, and different tools that we have in place to make the process easier. It's been a huge lift for us.
Is there any markets in Iowa that you guys either don't work in or can't, or is it you guys have cracked it all? I mean,
I wouldn't say we've cracked it all, but we haven't found a market that we don't do well in. Yeah. Cool. But we have not tried to go outside of Iowa. And I'm not objected to that in the long game. We might do it, but the challenge is I feel like once you get a certain distance away, having boots on the ground really makes a big difference. And I'm just not, you know, I'm all about like building a business that helps support the quality of life I want at this point. And one of the things that's really important to me is that I've got, you know, 3 girls at home. I'm happily married. Like, I want to spend time at home. And if I'm a road warrior trying to meet up with agents all over the place, that ain't possible. So, we've done the model of having like a almost an account executive type person that goes out and meets with agents, with mixed results. I think I was a little early on that maybe in Des Moines market. But that's what life is, right? You're testing shit and seeing what works. So anyway, I would contemplate doing that in other markets. But right now we're just really trying to make the most of the market that we've got. Yeah.
And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, your percentage of deals for the market is probably not like there's room to grow.
There's so much room. Yeah.
Right. So you're like, dude, I see that in agents, right? Like, they're like, oh, I'm going to go do this and that and that. And I'm like, I think you should just, I mean, I would just do really good at this.
Well, and the interesting thing from a lender seat is when you look at market share locally, I don't run into local lenders all that often. Like, and frankly, like, if I end up in a competitive situation against somebody that I know and respect, I'm not rude about it. Sometimes they're a little bit more competitive than I am. And I'm trying to find the right line of like, where am I an asshole and where am I respectful? Right. And I'm always having a hard time with that. Yeah. It depends on how I'm feeling that day. Probably like how they're feeling that day. But I find that the opportunity for market share is more about like online lenders, like the number of people that I work with that were a second look because they Google and they find us with reviews or whatever. It is unreal how often we look as a second opinion as a local lender, and we can not only like do a much better financing offer, but closing costs are significantly different too, because these outside lenders don't understand what abstracts are and how we do title opinions. So they've got like, you know, title insurance on there for like $2 or $3 grand. And immediately I put together some numbers. I'm like, hey, listen, like rates aside, let's not even talk about that. I can save you like $2,000 or $3,000 on the check you'd have to write at closing to make this deal work. Like, how does that sound? And most people are like delighted, you know. But then to the same point, like we'll start talking about the next steps of working together, and we're asking for things like a pay stub and, you know, in some loan scenarios, tax returns and W-2s. And people are like, well, the lender that I'm pre-approved with right now didn't ask for any of this. I'm like, well, how the hell are you pre-approved? Like, what good is that pre-approval letter? Yeah. And, you know, that's the kind of stuff that we're up against. So those are the opportunities where I think there's, like, to your point of our market share, right? Like, there's so much room, and it's not taking from other really great local people. It's usually going to be the people who just went online and found the easy button option.
And they don't have an agent that's smart enough to say, hey, yeah, we're going to use a local lender. Pick one of these three local
the
lenders.
The assertiveness is something that I think people have got to find the right balance that feels right to them, right? But yeah, some agents seem to be more successful in making that introduction.
I've never had anyone that's pushed back on it, but I don't really give them option.
I have a question for you. So you said lenders listening to this are going to love that I asked this. You said if they need a referral of someone local, I'd give them 3 names.
Yeah.
So lenders who do reciprocate in referrals, which, you know, some do, some don't, right? Yep. When I make a referral, my approach is, first of all, I know what makes you better, right? So I make an introduction saying, hey, I really think you should call Darson because he's an expert in this area. He knows this type of property. It's an easy referral. And then when they call you, they know that they're talking to the right guy. But the thing I always preface it with is, listen, like, sometimes it's not a good fit. I don't know if you catch Darson on a bad day or whatever, what that's going to be like. We all have them. If it doesn't work out, just give me a shout back and I can give you a couple other names. Yep. That's my methodology of making sure that it's not like tying or whatever. I don't know what would happen. But so now, like with the change of how agents are getting compensated, I'm kind of finding myself interested on, should I modify how I'm making that introduction? Because I might have 3 different agents that I work with, and, you know, in the past it's been like maybe varying admin fees or something, but really nothing major, right? But you know, it hasn't happened yet, I don't think, but you know there's going to be people who come into the market that are like, fuck 3%, I'm going to charge a flat whatever, or a la carte. There's somebody in Arizona doing a la carte. Do you think that the way that lenders make referrals to real estate agents are going to move more towards this, like, I got to give them 3 names, or do you think they're going to be more?
I don't know. I'll be candid, and you'll attest this. I've never asked a lender for referrals.
Right.
It's never been a, hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Right. I just don't. I quite frankly don't care. My coaches in real estate give me a hard time. They're like, you need to get your lenders to be sending you deals and your vendors. And I'm like, listen, I'll find deals elsewhere. Yeah. I'm pick them because they're really freaking good.
Yeah.
And I know they close on time. Yeah. And they'll communicate well. And that's why I pick them. And so I don't know the answer. I put myself in your shoes, and sending it to one. And if a agent is really good, they'll have them sign the EBA right away, and they won't get to pick a different one if it goes poorly. Right.
When you make the agent referral, exclusive buyer agreement, right?
Yeah, you make the agent referral, and the agent sits down and says, hey, you know, we got to sign this before we do anything. Mm-hmm. And some agents will probably let their clients out of those EBA, the exclusive buyer's agency agreement, but some won't, right? So you're kind of, you know, if you send them the wrong one, you're just SOL. Now you'll learn real quick. Okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen again, right?
We're not going to do this again, but that is something to think about.
I find that interesting.
Have to ask price, and they're gonna it's gonna depend if agents have different structures and models, which they currently do. Right? There's flat fee, flat commission brokers here today
on buy sides.
Yeah, I don't know actually. It's not very transparent.
Yeah, right. Well, so nobody's marketing themselves that way yet that I've noticed. Anyway,
that's gonna be a matter of time.
I think it'll be an interesting evolution. But to your point, like any agent who's made a lender referral, which I know you're not this person, so I feel comfortable saying it to your face. I probably say it to anybody, but to an agent that says, you know, shop around and find the best deal, if they believe that buyers have always made the decision based on who the cheapest option is, I know who those agents are because I've always made a mental note of them. Yeah. I'm really anxious to see how this change affects them, because if they truly believe that that's how their buyers make those buying decisions, how are they going to value themselves at anything other than whoever the cheapest person is that comes to market, which hasn't happened yet, but it will. I'm just curious if they'll be positioning themselves as the cheapest option in the market, since that's kind of how they seem to think buyers make decisions, right?
Yeah.
But for me, you know, I'm very aware that I would not be comfortable delivering the quality of outcome that we would if I was trying to undercut everybody. Yeah. It's not at all scalable or possible. And you know, it'll just be interesting to see if other people, become more aware of that as it kind of
opens it up to just like let the market figure it out, let capitalists be capitalists.
Yeah, man.
And I never thought of it as agents not having that freedom in the past until this, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could charge 10% if I wanted to,
of course.
Like, and you never couldn't before, but it was just I didn't provide that service, drive them around a Bentley all day, right? Like you could pay for it, but hey, maybe they want to.
Maybe it's an option.
Interesting.
I do think it'll be really great to have the transparency, though. That's the thing that I'm really excited about. I personally have been involved in a handful of transactions in my career. I've been involved in transactions with good agents. I've been involved in transactions with bad agents. I've been involved with transactions with no agents. There's a difference. And I do believe that the people who understand what value they bring to a transaction will very clearly be worth whatever it is that they put that price at. And I, as a loan officer, feel 100% confident that I can justify that fee when I'm making an introduction to somebody.
Yep.
I'm a guy who paid a lot of money on commission to sell a house a couple years ago, but it was worth every fucking penny.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have listed the house for what it was listed for without an agent saying, I got two people that'll make an offer at this price right now. It's like, are you fucking serious?
Was that your Panera house?
Yeah. Which, by the way, I feel really proud of the timing on that.
Yeah.
But I gladly paid that. So I think if you're an agent who doesn't know if your lender sees your value, you might ask them like, hey, can you tell me more about like how you reinforce what I'm doing? Because you do need to have a symbiotic relationship there. But otherwise you might lose your buyer at some point.
Yeah. So agents that are struggling right now, what are you seeing them not doing that they should be doing?
I think the biggest struggle in general is just lead flow, right? Like they just don't have people to help.
Yep. They're good at helping them when they get them, but they don't have help.
I know what to do once I got somebody. Yep. It's getting somebody, it's hard. So I think you got to find a way to get out there and meet people. And I do not think people realize how easy it is just to pick up the phone and talk to people, and it's free. It just takes you a little time and a lot of discomfort usually. But if you're brand new, let's say you're going to get married next month, you'd have a list of like 150 people you might invite to a wedding. Why aren't you calling them and saying, hey, remember, I'm in real estate. You know anybody that needs any help? I mean, it's not bad to just call people and remind them what you do. The thing that's wild about our business that I don't think a lot of people think about, but I do because I spend a lot of time like studying conversations and stuff. I've got a friend that's an accountant. And when I talk to him, and I'm a nerd, I'm not like, what's new in accounting, right? Like I don't think about that. But when I've got a conversation with a real estate agent or a mortgage person, like I'm actually asking them about what it is that they do, right? Like how's the market right now or whatever. We have a job and a business that people actually give a shit about.
Every time.
Yeah. So lean into that. Like I really think that that's an easy opportunity is just to talk to people. And don't abandon people who aren't ready to say yes now. I think that's another mistake that people make is if a client isn't ready to buy, first of all, finding out why. Like so often when I do that, they're like, I don't know, just everybody seems to think it's a bad time to buy. I'm like, let's set up a meeting where we can like look at some data and make a decision based on data, not our feelings. Because you could be missing out on a huge wealth creation opportunity. And when we open up that conversation, you can turn maybes and no's into yeses, and agents can be doing the exact same thing. So, but I mean, the key is just try shit. Know that not everything's going to work, and that's great. Like, I think you need to be as excited when you find a way that doesn't work as you do when you find a way that does work. And, you know, people who've been doing it for a while usually have some good war stories, you know, and some of the most successful people I've met have a really great positive association with some of their biggest failures, which is kind of funny to me. But they're like, yeah, that was the year that, like, for me, I had a gun pulled on me when I was door knocking. Justin Greenfield here in the local market was with me, so he can vouch for it. And oddly enough, like, when the dude did it, I still kept going. I was like, listen, I understand you got a gun. I'm not going to hurt you. How about you have a house to store your guns? And the guy was like kind of laughing because I was still, I mean, the guy wasn't going to buy a house. I should have known when to walk, right? But it's a funny story because, like, not a lot of people will put themselves in a situation where that could happen. And I'm stupid enough to do just about anything once. So, but you know, you just get your reps in and figure out what works for you and what doesn't, and keep moving.
The quick no is better than a long maybe.
Yeah.
That's where I like it. Like, yes. But then, so I've been bad at the follow-up, right? So that's, I don't say fix it, but I've gotten a lot better the last year and a half.
And if a lender that you work with does a lot of the follow-up, you don't have to worry about it.
You guys do remind me, hey, what is this person doing? I appreciate that. Yeah. But like, I was just like, hey, if they're not ready in the next 3 months, I'm on to the next. Because I was like, there's a next. Mm-hmm. There's other agents in the office that are really good at, like, just, they have 20 people and they're just like all about them for, you know, the next 2 years. Yeah. But there's little growth there. So it's the combination of both. I
had a business coach ask me a really good question. He said, how many clients do you have that are pre-approved but haven't yet bought a house? And I gave him the number, and he quantified it. He goes, how much do you make on average in revenue per loan? And I said, and he quantifies it, and it was like over $1 million in possible revenue. And he said, so what's your plan to get that $1 million in revenue? And I had an answer. And he goes, would you say you're acting as excitedly about how you're following up with those people as you are the people who, you know, just started the process? And I was like, probably not. He's like, well, what would it look like if you were? So, you know, it really got me thinking about how we follow, because we do follow up with people forever. But how do we do it? Is it personal, or is it just kind of like a, you know, housing related question? And it was a housing related question. So we're starting to pull out as much information as we can about what's motivating people, what's changing, because usually it's life changes that are motivating a lot of it. So when we're following up, it's a personalized, you know, interest in what it is that they had expressed in one of the first conversations with the team. And we're getting more response than we ever have by doing that. Yeah. So I would encourage anybody, if you don't have a follow-up for the long tail, do it. Like, please, for God's sakes, do it. And when you're doing it, it doesn't take a lot. It's just, hey, you know, how's the pregnancy coming along? How you doing? I mean, I never would ask that, but why the fuck wouldn't I ask that? Like, if I had a good friend that was pregnant, that's like a friendly thing to say. Yeah. Or if you know they're big Iowa State fans, you know, what'd you think of the game? You know, I mean, these are obvious things, but sometimes the obvious thing isn't so obvious.
You just get nervous as, you know, what should I say to them? What value can I bring?
Right.
But you just relate to them.
Or I just thought, like, you know, I got something that's good enough. Yeah. You know, but good enough doesn't guarantee the $1 million in future revenue. So I think that you just got to start thinking about that. My dad is still in the insurance business. You know this. Still. And he's been doing it for a very long time. And he's at a stage in his career where he's got a lot of recurring revenue and, you know, residuals. And he really didn't have to work at all at this point. And in the mortgage business, I have no path to that. That's not really what I signed up for. But, you know, when I started, I kind of wanted to prove that I could figure this out without having to go into the insurance business. That was probably a chip on my shoulder that served me pretty well, actually. But we don't have that. The closest thing to that I have is really great database marketing. So continuing to buy brain cells from people who already know, like, and trust me, and then having a follow-up sequence for the long tail for people who aren't ready to say yes now, but will at some point in the future. And out of everything that we've done to help serve agents that we work with, the feedback I get is that that's probably one of the most valuable things we do, because it will routinely happen. We'll have an agent where we had like an amazing few months of referrals, and we'll follow up with people forever. And then like they stop referring us deals for whatever reason. Maybe they had like an in-house lender or something that came along or whatever. And we'll reach out and be like, hey, you know, Bob and Sally are ready to buy again. Like, oh shit, I forgot about Bob and Sally. I'm like, we never will forget about Bob and Sally. That's just how we roll. And we'll get them back because their other loan officer would maybe call them once or twice and never follow up. So I would encourage anybody, if you're a loan originator and don't have a follow-up, get a CRM that just forces you by tasks, is how we do it, where you close out all the tasks every day, and it just reminds you when you got to do stuff. And that's how that is a scalable thing.
Seems so easy.
Yeah. Well, but
every system does it of some capacity.
You can't do it alone though.
Yeah.
Like that's the other thing that I think people don't want to acknowledge is, okay, at what point do you want to stop being an owner operator? Because that's what all of us start out to be, and start thinking of who can I hire that can do a lot of these things that keep the business rolling, but I can focus more on some of the, you know, more high payoff activities or things that I'm truly good at. Yep. Like I can pick up the phone and check in on how somebody's doing on home search, but I wouldn't say that that's like what I'm uniquely great at, you know? Yep. So yeah, but that takes a lot of guts, you know, to start writing checks. Signing the front of a check is a little different than signing the back of a check.
Yes. Okay. Next, same question, but for lenders.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, what are they, if they're struggling right now? Because I've seen way more lenders get out of the business than I've seen realtors.
Well, so
am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. So lenders, in refi booms, like what we just went through, lenders are oftentimes guilty of really getting 100% focused on refis. Mm-hmm. That's how I started, was 100% focused on refis. Someone who only succeeds in refi periods is not going to be a career loan originator. So I think you have to get really clear on what is it that's important to be a purchase-oriented lender. And I don't know how to say this kindly, so I'm just going to say it like how I think about it. There are a lot of lenders who have a shit attitude about real estate agents. They just do.
Yep.
And I used to work in many of those offices where I would hear people literally just talking shit about agents all day. And
it wasn't an agent office, because we do that too.
No. But it was, you know, a bunch of loan officers who were just complaining about agents for different reasons. And, you know, they make too much money, they're whatever. And it really will get into your mind that there's some legitimacy to that. And it is a brain rot. Like, it is really not good. So the first thing is make sure you work at a place that is supportive of purchase business and doesn't talk shit about agents. Because you talk to any of the top loan officers in this area, they're not shit talkers about agents. They see the value they bring. They love the partnership that they have. You know, we enjoy what we both bring to the transaction for a client. The people who are limping along and like a month away from getting out of the business, they shit talk agents. Mm-hmm. It's just the truth. So I think you've got to get a better attitude of what value agents bring. Know that not all agents are created equal. Like, yeah, there are probably some agents who deserve some shit talking. I may be popular for having done that in a local real estate group. And that agent, by the way, will not accept an offer with a pre-approval letter from me. And honestly, that's well worth the price of admission for me.
That's aggressive.
Yeah. Wow. But I think that finding a way to be great at purchase business is the way you do this. And anyone who's really struggling right now, I think that's the thing that they don't have a lot of familiarity with. So make sure you're working at a company that knows it, knows how to do it. But there's things about being a good purchase-oriented loan originator that, you know, I think the best way to find out what to do is just, oddly enough, talk to agents. And they'll give you a script of exactly what to do. I've had loan officers locally that will reach out to me after they talk to a handful of agents, and even agents who don't work with us on a regular basis will still quote, like, I just really like the way Osby's team does things, which is a huge compliment that someone who doesn't actively refer us business still digs the way we do it. Yeah. And I'm an open book. Like, if anybody ever wants to see what I'm doing, I mean, fuck, there's a coaching program now that has a lot of my content out there, where you could literally just swipe and adapt it. So I don't think people who are doing okay really worry too much about sharing any trade secrets.
Right. Yes.
It's the people who are still trying to figure it out that I think sometimes can feel a little bit, at least speaking from my own experience, I was pretty protective of it and a little insecure that someone else would just take it and do better with it. But at this point, like, I mean, how special is a weekly email update? You know, like, is that really that fucking hard? But it is. But it is.
It is.
As it turns out, it is hard to stick with. I have a really good friend that started doing them. I mean, this was like a long time ago, like 10 years ago. And he did it for about 10 months. And I said, hey, so how's it going? And he goes, dude, I stopped doing it. I'm like, why? He's like, people would ask fucking questions that were in the email and nobody's reading it. And I was like, you're missing the point. Like, yes, they will, because that's human nature. People don't actually pay attention, but seeing the weekly update every week just gives you a sense of somebody's got this and I don't have to worry about it. You're not getting the good emails of people who really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it's an effort. Like, I used to send those myself. It took a lot of time. Andrew, who does it for me now, he's been doing it for 14 years.
Whoa.
That was the first thing I delegated, was those weekly updates. But he's a rock star at it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't have to worry about him. You know, Andrew.
Yep.
So
I know Molly better, but
yeah.
cool. What about, we got just a few minutes left. The agents, like the lenders that are doing really well, or like, what would you like, what are they doing besides just the opposite of like, yeah, what are they doing well? How could they, I guess, keep growing, or what's the bright, shiny object?
Well, I think so. I've got a weird history on why I have the opinion I do, and you know the history. So my wife, Heather, used to be a real estate agent. So that's how I met her. It's probably the only way I was going to meet a girl, if we're being realistic here. And when we got married, we decided we were going to start a family, and we had the conversation of like, who's going to stop working the way we're working, and it wasn't going to be me. And she had some other interests that she wanted to pursue, like an online fitness business and stuff, and she's extremely talented. So she got out of real estate. During the time that I was dating a real estate agent, it was like the plague to get referrals from realtors.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to build a referral-based business from agents when I was dating a real estate agent. When Heather got out, that's probably the best thing that ever happened to me economically.
Both ways.
Yeah. Yes, of course. But like, this is a business podcast. So, but my point in bringing that up is when we were dating, I had to find my own business for the most part. And I was a pretty, busy loan originator, but I figured out marketing and how to get the phone to ring. If you want to succeed, I don't think it is a successful model to go meet with agents and ask them for business. It can work, but most successful agents have existing lending relationships, and it's hard to get in on them. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've got 21 years of experience and a pretty good reputation. I have a fucking hard time. I can only imagine how it would be if you're just trying to get out of the refi market and move it into purchase. So I would personally recommend trying to figure out how to find your own business, which might be going door knocking. It might be trying to tinker with ads. It might be, buying lists and marketing to them. But you got to get out there and just try shit and see what works. But what will make you significantly more valuable than most agents' current lending relationship, I know you said that it doesn't matter to you, but I have found that if I have referrals to give to agents and I can actually reciprocate, that is highly unusual because we've got a lot of people in our market who are great loan originators. They know what to do when they get the loan, right? But they don't know what to do to source business from anybody other than agents. So there's no reciprocation. If they're sitting in an office somewhere and all they do is take inbound leads, they really don't have a lot to refer out. And I will tell you, if you're even a brand new LO, if you get a lead and you've got an agent that you got a little bit of rapport with, you send them that lead, you're going to be a favorite.
Yep.
And that's how I built my reputation. When Heather was a real estate agent, that was how we grew our agent relationships, was having leads to.
Are you able to share what percentage a referral agent that comes in versus just direct marketing?
Oh, like how?
Yeah, on your business or
like individual sourcing on our business.
Yeah.
I would say that agents are probably 50% of our business.
That's super high.
Yeah.
Like, or that split is.
Like how many we do?
I would say the majority of lenders have it's 85 to 95%. Wouldn't you? Of agent referrals.
Yeah. But like we are fierce marketers with our database. Those are my fucking clients.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be rude about it, but like if I can't get the repeat business on that, I'm pissed.
Yep.
And we've elevated how we're managing that actually. So hopefully I'm not sharing too much here, but we've always been a lot with direct mail. You get my weekly emails. I mean, I send a lot of communication to clients to add value. It's not just selling. But we've started drawing like a fence around that group where we've gone as far as I get alerted when they list their home. I get alerted when they have a mortgage inquiry. I get alerted when there's like an equity opportunity. We are very invested to protect that because at this point I have thousands of clients that we've served over the last 21 years and I don't want to lose them.
Yep.
So that's why the balance is what it is. But a lot of times now, I've been doing this for so damn long, there's agents who've retired.
Yes.
There's agents who've gotten out of the business. So those are the opportunities where I've got a repeat client of mine that we've got an opportunity to refer it to someone because their agent's not in the business anymore.
Yep.
So again, back to like sourcing, that's why it's probably so skewed, way more than it used to be. There was a period where it was like probably 80% agent referral, but then I got really focused on past client database marketing.
Cool. Okay. To wrap this up, how can folks reach out to you, lenders or agents? What do you, any plugs?
Just email me, Tyler at tylerosbyteam.com seems pretty easy. Or I'm pretty active on social. If you're, Instagram's probably like my preferred, social media network and you just DM me. Cool. I'm always open to doing lunch or coffee or whatever. Just love meeting people.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Tyler.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, dude.
Have a good one.
Yeah.